Good afternoon, my name is Delvin. I'm Director of Industrial at Mighty Asset Management. I've only recently joined Mighty from British Gas, actually, about 6 to 8 weeks ago, I guess now. Really much with a mandate of coming in and building their energy services business with a focus on industrial but also wider sector base. So I'm a part of Mighty that focuses on energy and energy services rather than cleaning and catering. So I can't really take any sort of questions on that side, but what my real main focus for you today is very much a high-level view of sharing some of my experiences, both in my previous life but also in the experience that I've got with Mighty today and what Mighty's got around sort of community-based energy schemes. And I don't necessarily mean community with local community in mind, but also between intra-company in terms of divisions, how you link your treasury departments with your operations, but also within intra-site, so pooling your sites together to create an energy demand that is attractive to the marketplace from an energy savings potential. So that's me. I'm not here to sell you a load of stuff around Mighty, which hopefully you'll be very pleased about, really just to share some of that experience that I've had over the last sort of 10, 15 years in this space. So a little bit about Mighty Asset Management, if I may. We're part of the business that really focuses on decentralised energy, whether that's straightforward gas CHP, right through to biomass, right through to wind technologies, energy centres, energy from waste, AD. If it looks like it can be pulled together to create an energy centre, a decentralised energy plant, Mighty Asset Management can look to do that from a funding stream, from a design point of view, right through to installation and operation. It's very hungry to own and operate assets on its balance sheet, so it can work with organisations that have capital constraints. We've recently secured sort of circa £200 million worth of investment to actually build and create a lot of these energy centres out there. So that's just really it from a Mighty Asset Management point. That's our credibility in the market. We currently are running numerous energy centres for public and private sector organisations. But really, the focus on today is trying to get a feel and share with you some of the thoughts around what's forcing organisations to make a carbon response. Now, I think the very fact that you're at this show today shows that you have an interest in energy and sustainability, so I'm not going to go through this in great depth, but as you all know, all businesses, both public and private, are being squashed by either capacity demands or lack of capital investment. Certainly some of the organisations I'm currently working with have zero capital to deploy on energy projects. They're so focused on surviving right now and delivering on their core business that actually to invest in energy infrastructure on their sites, even if energy is a significant part of their OPEX, can't do it. Public sector is a prime example of that, and I'll touch on some of the hospital work in a moment. So whether it's carbon reduction commitments, climate change agreements, increasing or fluctuating energy prices, certainly our clients are telling us that it's not just high energy prices that are causing issues, it's that fluctuation. It's almost impossible to budget. It's very difficult for them to set forecasts and trends where they're going to understand. So if you can minimise that sort of impact on your bottom line, then maybe decentralised energy. And what I'm really going to talk about today is a little bit what I would call energy performance contracting. So really incentivising your supply chain, whether it's Mighty, whether it's British Gas, whether it's whoever else it might be out there, incentivising your supply chain to make them guarantee the outputs of their types of technology or their contracts. So it's putting very much the power back in your hands to guarantee a performance. Just really a little bit more context, we recently acquired Utilix, a significant energy broker in the UK. Their forecasts are suggesting that, we'll need to replace sort of 50% of our generation capacity by sort of 2030. Again, building on the need for you to take control and take back control of your energy, be it gas, be it electricity, be it renewables, whatever it would be, and also to give you a sense of security of supply within your own business. So what do I mean really by community scale energy? Again, it's not just local authorities or local community type work, it's really how you deliver that sense of price certainty that gives you an output that you would need. It protects against threat of power shortages right the way through to tackling fuel poverty and your link as businesses and organisations within the local authority, within your local community. How do you generate scale? How do you generate scale with your energy demand that gives you buying potential back in the market? And that's really the focus of where I'm going for the next sort of 5 minutes. Energy performance contracts, output-based contracts, we're starting to see a significant shift in the marketplace. Really kicked off by the NHS sector, our health sector, born out of the fact that they have distressed assets or assets that really haven't been updated or played with just because of a lack of capital. We all understand the budget constraints that's facing the health sector. So they've gone out to the market in significant numbers, actually, through the Community Energy Foundation or Community Energy Fund, right the way through to individual tenders we're seeing out there at the moment. Individual tenders circa 10, 20, 30 million pounds. And actually they're putting the emphasis back on the supply chain to say we need replacement decentralised energy, we need demand management services. We do not and no longer wish to manage our own energy requirements on site. So the NHS have very much kicked this off. They're looking to drive this through, and we're seeing almost on a weekly basis new NHS contracts coming out. And the private sector's beginning to follow. It's asking its supply chain, if you're going to install me a bit of kit, I want you to guarantee its output. Now that output may be in kilowatt hours terms, it may be well in carbon reduction terms. We're often seeing output guarantees in the form of cost reduction based on a benchmark year. So there's a whole commercial myriad of what's driving the performance contract market. If you have the ability within your organisations to pull energy together, energy procurement together, circa anywhere from £500,000 and above, potential performance contracting market could be for you. If you have multiple sites, we work with pub chains, we've worked with all different sites of organisations that are starting to pull theirs together and saying, can you hedge and can you reduce my carbon emissions or my energy consumption across my portfolio? No longer is output-based contracting the sort of domain of large single-site CHP. Yes, it works on that and it can work very well, but actually we're now starting to see multi-site retailers, hotel groups, leisure groups, all coming to the market and pooling their sites together and asking their supply chain to guarantee their carbon outputs, their energy outputs across that entire portfolio. So what are we doing? Hopefully this sort of technology will work for me on here. Maybe, maybe not. I guess not. So NHS Trust, the Royal Free Hampstead Hospital down in London, that relationship for us was born out of the traditional FM market. So we used to run their cleaning, their security site for that. They went to the market and said, we need to remove the energy burden on the carbon burden from this trust. We can no longer satisfy the demand. We can no longer feed the capital that's required or the OPEX required. We're having to refocus our efforts on what limited budget they have on core medical services. And this is where we came in. So effectively, we were challenged them to guarantee a 15% CO2 reduction. They had no money to do it. They certainly had no capex, they had limited opex. They had a carbon target, and also they wanted us to reduce circa £1.72 million worth of energy per annum. That was the tender that went out. It was a fairly competitive tender, I can tell you. There's a number of players out there in the market that are looking to offer this type of service. You should talk to your own energy companies. If you use an FM, some of the other FM providers are looking to get into this market. It's starting to get traction. But certainly from the Royal Free's point of view, a 1.7 guarantee was the minimum that it required on a yearly basis. Now that has some challenges for us, and if the video worked, but I didn't get a chance to load it on there, you would have seen us trying to get sort of a 4 megawatt gas turbine and replacement boiler stock into what can only be described as a sort of 100-year-old building that was very narrow, very small, some significant engineering challenges, as I'm sure you can imagine. But actually the biggest challenge of all isn't the engineering, it's about working in partnership with a client. If you're looking at performance-based outputs or performance-based contracting, it's a bit of a cliche almost that, per se, we have to work in partnership. If you're not prepared to do that on a performance-based contract, you will lose out. Of that, there is no doubt. Because at the end of those contracts, or when you're going through a year-on-year space, if you haven't worked with your suppliers to guarantee that output and to understand what makes up that guarantee, you will almost always end up in contractual dispute. If you don't work with that supply chain, if they don't work with you, you're heading for pitfalls, and that comes from experience from me. So I'm getting the 5-minute nod. Now, I talked about community in 3 parts: inter-site, intra-departmental, but also local community. Off the back of the Royal Free, and this is where your organisations can really work well, whatever communities you're in, whatever sites you've got, is there an opportunity to extend beyond that? So the Royal Free had the 6 megawatt gas turbine in there. With the excess heat of that, we actually worked with the hospital and the local community at Camden to put in a district heat main. So we're now supplying heat to 1,500 council homes, really sort of taking the fuel poverty mix into account, reducing carbon emissions in that space, and also guaranteeing a revenue of sort of circa £1 million to Camden year on year. That's £1 million they can do something else with, focus on what their core business is, which is providing community services, be it education, be it whatever it might be. The whole point of outputs-based contracting is giving your energy requirements to someone who knows how to do it. You heard John earlier on talking about how to map it and identify evidence-based. This is the perfect sort of presentation to follow on from that, because once you've identified what it is, you can go to the market, you can go to your supply chain and say, how do I unlock this potential? I want you to guarantee it. If it's someone like a Mighty or some of the others, we'll even finance it and have it on our balance sheet. Okay, you can do lots of different things with it, but you have to work in partnership with your supply chain to do so. And really, what are the key things in any performance contract? And I'm sorry if that's not very clear to see, but again, this is from my experience of mechanics behind it. You know, if you don't have those people in-house, you can certainly look some of the technologies, what are the key commercial fundamentals that you will need to deploy to ensure that you get your weighted average cost of capital spread across an output guarantee, which may be 10, 15 years. It's about really getting to the heart of what are those investment decisions. Because if you want to unlock the true potential of all these assets, you've got to understand the commerciality of it. And the other thing that's driving the performance contract market right now is a shift away from being technology specific. So it's not so much about who's got the latest CHP boiler. It's not about who's got the latest light bulb fitting. It's about how you combine those technologies in a commercial wrapper that's really unlocking the £2 million saving for the Royal Free every year. It's about how they generate community heating, unlocking another £1 million for Camden every year. That's how you get the most out of it. Who are your developers? We work with a lot of clients putting together special purpose vehicles to be able to work with their sites so they don't have assets on their balance sheets that they don't want. So they can, all that revenue will sit through the special purpose vehicle, it will work its way back into those organisations, but it doesn't have to mean that they have depreciating assets that they do not want on their balance sheets. So it's understand how you develop those projects. And then finally operate. You know, unless you are an energy company, unless you are a CHP manufacturer, you probably don't want to be operating a whole pile of energy assets. We're working with a number of clients right now that are actually saying, take this energy pain away from me. If you can own it, if you can operate it over a 15-year agreement, take it away. That frees up my resource, it frees up my capital and my OPEX to deploy on my business. And then really, just rounding up, in summary, you know, really look at some of the environmental and social values. Yes, always key in the different things you do, but really, an output-based performance contracting is financial, it's economic. If you can really get to grips with driving your supply chain, there are some significant advantages for you to be had. Thank you very much.
Okay, great, thanks.